come in from a neutral standpoint and understand really what is going on. Then after doing that, you want to go back to the code of conduct.
I want to create solutions which help people.
Be this person I want to be in the future, I have to follow this path.
Seeing their lifestyle, the type of lifestyle that I want.
Africa's blank canvas. Paint your dreams.
Welcome to today's episode. Today I'm joined by Fibi. Fibi is a community manager based in Nigeria. How are you doing, Fibi?
Great, sir. Thanks for having me.
Can you please tell us about your background? How growing up in Nigeria was for you? How you found community management for you?
Okay. So growing up in Nigeria has been a really pleasant journey. So starting out, while in school, I got really fascinated about entrepreneurship and the possibilities, like the endless possibilities that it had to offer. So I started my business. I run a baking business, and while I was building my product, I created a community around it. And at that time, I didn't really know what community was and the benefits that communities could drive for a business. But I was just doing it for fun, right? So I created a community around my baking products, and it had a very huge impact on it. So moving forward, I think after last year, I decided to delve into tech, and I started out as a product designer. But then over time, I found out that product design wasn't really something that encapsulated me like a lot. So I had to do a deep reflection, and I asked myself, what is that thing or what is that skill that I can easily transfer into the tech world and I'll be very good at it. And I had to make a lot of research. And then I came across community management, and I'm like, okay, this is something that I've literally been doing from my own business, right? So I took a bold step, and earlier this year, I got into community management, and it's been a pleasant one, right? So in essence, it's just been like a journey, a process that has led me to where I am today, because I've gained transferable skills that have been able to help me in my journey as a community manager. I've been able to gain the skill of customer service, problem solving, critical thinking. These are things I've been able to gain just from running my own business, and I'm able to apply it in the tech world. So
That's lovely. Especially like you said, like you were building your own product, then you decided to build a whole entire community around it. And next thing, you just fell in love with the whole entire aspect of building communities and bringing people together. Because as we see in the world we're going to these days, is basically communities. Everywhere you look these days, there are communities popping in and out. So can you give us some tips on how to build a community?
okay, sure. So if there's one thing I would always start out by asking whoever wants to build a community is, what is the purpose of that community? Because if you were to go down to the deep-rooted meaning of community, right, it means a group of people coming together to solve, a group of people coming together who are bounded by either a goal, something must be binding this set of people together. So if you're starting out a community, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what is the purpose? Why should people care about joining your community? What is going to be that defining factor that will bring people together? That's the first step. It could be a community just for fun purposes. Define it. Let your members know that, okay, this is the purpose of this community for fun. If you're building a community of products, it should be defined what objectives do you want to drive using community as a platform, right? So it must be defined. That's number one. Then I would also say we should also understand that community is not the platform you use, but the network of people that you're able to bring together, because this is where a lot of people get it wrong. So if you're also starting out building a community, I would always advise that you start out with building an audience first. Then when your audience starts to show an inclination towards being more of a connected community, then you can now bring them into a closed community platform. So that's the number 2 tip I would give. Start building as an audience. And a lot of people fail to understand that social communities can be built on social media. But then when you look at communities, like there are a lot of thriving communities that are just on social media. You look at Diary of a Niger Girl, you look at communities like Money Africa. These are communities that have been built on social media. And what helped them was them building out an audience first. And then they gave their audience that feeling of a connection, that feeling of belonging. So yeah, that's the number 2 tip that I would give with building a thriving community. Number 1, I already said, define the purpose of that community, why you want people to gather. Then also, I would also talk about validate the demand of your community, because most of the times we all have great ideas, but then when you put them down into action, you find out that those ideas aren't profitable. They are just ideas, but then on the long run, it still goes down to knowing the purpose of a community, because some people build communities just on the short term, but if it's something you're looking towards building for a very long term, especially if it's a community of products. By community of products, I mean a community in which is centered around the product. For example, the company where I work currently, Growth Tickets, we're building a community of products. So the people coming together, right? The main purpose is, okay, we are driving feedback, we are driving product feedback, we are driving product success using that community like as a means. So if it's a community of products you're building, you have to be able to validate the demand, and you have to do that by research. So these are just some few tips that I will give for building a thriving and sustainable community. Yeah.
You've said a lot there, especially on the fact that you say that you need to first build an audience before you start building the community. And I feel like that's where a lot of people get it wrong. They rush to building communities,
Exactly.
and they don't validate, is there a need for this community and stuff like that. And they end up having this jumbled, weird community where it doesn't have a direction, doesn't have a purpose, like you said. Then from someone who has built a lot of communities and managed a lot of communities, what challenges have you faced, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Okay. What challenges have I faced? Okay, I think the number one challenge that I've actually faced, especially building a community for a company, which is like, that is not my, like for a business that is not my business, is getting the other stakeholders to understand the value. Because a lot of people, if you take a lot of people who run businesses, they just love the idea of having a community around the products they are building. But then there is no real, I'm trying to look for the best word. They don't really know the value that community can drive for their business, but then they just love the idea, because currently in the world we live in today, community is becoming a buzzword. Every business out there now wants to build a community, right? And then they forget that community is not for every business, it's not for every product. So I think that's one challenge that I've faced, getting the other stakeholders to really key into the driving objectives that we're using community as a means to, like getting them to really understand the importance of community building. So that's one major challenge I faced, and how I've been able to overcome it is slowly and gradually advocating, talking to them about, okay, the importance, and then also putting into action, which is using community as that driving, taking actionable steps to show them, okay, this is a metric that we've been able to use community to drive. For example, we've been able to push so amount of engagement, and you can see people engaging, you can see people advocating for this community, and we've been able to do that with the connecting effort of everybody. So I think that's one major challenge that I faced. I'm trying to think of another challenge, but I think that's one challenge that is like that's just coming to my head right now. Yes, but along the line, if I do remember any, I would be sure to talk about it.
Lovely words there, especially on the challenges you talked about. I feel like a lot of people have experienced those challenges, and the things you've said might help them in their current challenge at the moment. Then I recently saw that you were at the open source conference in Nigeria. How was the experience? I think you had a talk on community management. How was the entire event? I feel like it was a really big event, and it was something that I would have loved to go, but it was out of range of some of us. But it was something I feel like it really brought a lot of people from different parts of the world to come and share the information. How was the event for you from your perspective, for someone who attended it and had a stand to talk about something?
Okay, so that was my first time actually attending Oscar Fest, which is open source festival, and I would say the organizers really did a great job because with that event, it was able to foster a lot of connections. I met people who I've just connected with online, but I've never really met them face to face, and I was able to connect with them through Oscar Fest. I met a lot of amazing people, Andy Jones, like a lot of people doing great things in Web3 and open source space. Yeah, so it was a really great event. And yeah, I spoke on analyzing how we want thriving community field. So that was the topic for my speech, which I delivered, though it was a lightning talk, but I'm glad that people were able to gain value. Yeah. So I think we should look towards attending next year.
We'll definitely look to what's happening next year and see how things are like.
So,
Then I'm a person who believes in constant improvement. We're always improving for the better. So from my experience with the open source festival, what would you say to other people who want to bring in something like that into live, what would you say to people who want to bring an event like that maybe next year? What improvements can you say can be made to make an event even bigger and better the next time it comes around? Because I always believe we can never do the same thing twice. We always have to be improving until we reach as close enough to perfection.
yeah, you're right. So I'm just trying to think back. Okay, the improvement. Hmm. Okay, I think one improvement would be because there were some, should I say, some talks that I felt were more enlightening than others, and those talks were being given lesser time. So I think next year the organizers should probably carry out a research to know, or a survey to know the kind of talks their audience want to see more, so that because there was a way they did it, right? We had breakout sessions. So there were some topics, like my own topic now was a breakout session. Yeah. And then they had some other talks that were like on the main stage. But then I noticed that some of the talks that were on the main stage weren't really that, for me, another person might have like a totally different experience. I'm just talking from my own experience. Some of the talks that were on the main stage weren't that enlightening enough, right? So I think next year they should just carry out a survey and reach out to the people who attended it to ask them, okay, what kind of topics would you like to see? Because most of the times we create events and we don't create those events with our intending attendees. Do you get? We just create it because, okay, we want to have an event, but for every event that you organize, you should take into consideration the people who are going to attend. What kind of topics would they like to see? What kind of activities would they like to engage in? So those are questions that should be asked. But overall, I would say I'll give a thumbs up to the organizers. They did well. The event venue that was used was top notch. The organization, it was amazing. The food, everything, it was awesome.
That's something to take note of to all the people who are listening. Like sometimes you have to ask the people what do you want to see, because like you said, maybe people were interested a bit more in other things than but they never got enough time. Anyways, I'm glad you went. I'm glad you enjoyed and met. I saw a lot of activity on Twitter when the event was happening. A lot of people were meeting each other for the first time in years, just talking online, like you said. Then, on that same topic about people building relationships online, what words can you give people? Like, how do you build that relationship? What do you need to do to have that relationship with someone? Maybe we just met on Twitter. What things have you used that has helped you build relationship with people to the point that you are able to go for like 5 years without even seeing each other physically, but the connection and the relationship is strong?
Okay, that's a very good question. Yeah, but then before I proceed to answer the question, I would say when it comes to building relationships, I really don't have, there is no one formula. But for me, I would say being authentic and letting your work speak for you, right? Because they said, I'm trying to remember the statement. Is it like charges attract, or you attract the kind of person that you are? So if you're authentic, if you're authentic online, you definitely attract authentic people with the kind of content that you dish out. Yeah. So be authentic and put out good work out there, because a lot of people would connect or will want to be friends with you when they see the kind of amazing work that you do. And people of quality know people of quality. Like they always want to connect with their fellow amazing quality people. So just put out good work, be authentic, and attend events like both virtual or physical events. Like attend, contribute. That's another thing I would say. Contribute. Look for ways in which you can add value to the other person. Don't just wait for the other person, because life is a give and take situation, right? It's more like a symbiotic relationship, you give and you take. So look for ways in which you and that person can collaborate. For example, you meet a product designer on Twitter and I am a community manager. You should be thinking of, okay, how can or what projects can we both work on that would be valuable to each other's portfolio? Do you get? It could be in research, because community managers as well, we are researchers. So you could like propose a topic to that person and say, okay, let's work on this passion project together. So those are ways to build connections and also maintain that connection. Just make sure you add value at every point, be authentic, and put out good work, because it's your work that will speak for you in places that you never thought of. Yeah.
I love the word that you use to summarize everything, like being authentic, being real. That really goes a lot, especially online, because you see a lot of people will be trying to copy what other people are doing. And these days, people can see that live these days. Everyone can easily see, oh, this is maybe a copy and paste template. This is someone trying to be what they're not, and people don't like that anymore. But like you said, you have to be authentic, being real. You attract people of the same caliber as you, people who are also willing to work. And also love the fact that you said you need to provide value. Sometimes it's just about, oh, I see that you're doing this. I got this idea. Can we work together and bring this idea into reality? So on the issue of being authentic, I think it's time for people to know Fibi behind the scenes. So people see you on Twitter, they see you doing whatever you do, and you're posting. We usually all know that online, most of the times we usually post our highlights and a very few lows. So can you just tell us, who is
Yeah.
Fibi? Who is Fibi in general? What does she like? What does she do in her spare time?
Okay, in my spare time, I love to watch movies. I love to play games, precisely GTA, Mortal Kombat, and I love to have fun. I love going out for events, partying, meeting new people. Yeah.
So another key question people would like to ask is, in communities, what is the best way to handle a situation where members of the communities are arguing or they are fighting? What's the best way to handle that? How would you resolve that with your experience?
Okay, so in my own opinion, I think the first thing you want to do is to come in from a neutral standpoint and understand really what is going on. Then after doing that, you want to go back to the code of conduct and ensure if that argument is a really valid argument, and as far as they are not using like crosswords or stuff that goes way beyond code of conduct, you can just tell them, okay, it's good to have like an argument, but don't take it like over the borders. Then if they're taking it over the borders, you remind them that, okay, this is not in our code of conduct, and if this is done again, they will be banned from the community. So I like to issue like a warning before I go to remove or block anybody from being a member of the community. So yeah.
Then what can we expect from Phoebe in the near future? With what's her plans? What is she? Are there any new communities she's trying to build? Is there anything new what's happening with her life?
Okay. So first off, I currently have a business running, and I'm thinking of taking it like more bigger, like opening a bigger bakery. So that's number one. Then um currently I want to manage more open source communities. So you can expect that for me, like in the future, you see Phoebe managing more of open source communities. And if there's also something that I would like to do in the future is go more into community consulting, whereby I'm consulting for big brands as to how they can build successful communities, giving them strategies to drive engagement, to drive growth and foster connection. Yeah, so in the future, definitely you'll be seeing Phoebe as a community consultant, consulting for big top brands, yeah, in the future.
That's lovely. That's very lovely. We wish you all the best success, especially with, your businesses. Then our last question of the day will be, when it comes to community building, I know a lot of people are aspiring to be community managers as yourself. What advice would you
Yeah.
give them? Someone who also wants to do something aligned in your field, what advice would you give them? Maybe they're just starting out small. I remember we talked about this earlier when you said about know as the rules of the community, be specific about your community. But now I want you to more approach it in a way of like a certain like personal touch way. It's more about what you as a person is experienced and what advice you think people or what experience you think people should know as they want to be community managers.
Okay, so I'll start by saying that a lot of people need to understand that community management is a very vast space. It requires a lot. It's more than just putting out content and moderating like in a group chat. And for you to be a successful community manager, you must be empathetic, you must have good communication skills rather, and okay, you must have good communication skills. You must be a people person, being able to relate to people, start off conversations, and yeah, in general, be a good communicator. And another thing is in this our field, there are relatively few courses you can take, right? So if you really want to be a good community manager, don't just wait for knowledge to be spoon fed because it definitely wouldn't be spoon fed to you. So you have to go out, look for where you can get this knowledge. Like when I started, the courses I wanted to take, they were highly expensive. I couldn't afford it at that time. So I had to start digging deeply. Then I came across Tom Rawls and his community manual. I came across David Spinks and his newsletters. So these are things you want to like get yourself and pass through it. Because if you're just waiting and saying, oh my God, this course is expensive, I cannot do this right now, you're only giving yourself excuses. So just know that the sky is big enough for everybody to shine. And you might be coming into the space and thinking that, oh my God, I won't really be successful. Like just in your own path, be the very best at what you intend doing. And at every point in time, never you feel like you know it all. Because the thing is that knowledge will keep on unraveling itself. So the moment you stop learning is the moment you stop being that badass you think you are. So just at every point in time, for knowledge, go for it. Wishing you success. Yeah.
Thank you for those lovely words. They really connect to a lot of people, especially said, no matter how things are expensive, just find workarounds to get that information to learn. Always keep learning. You will never reach the point where you know it all. It's all about continuous improvement. And also community management is also difficult. So it's not something you should get in there saying maybe it's an easy way out of life. So Phoebe, thank you. the last thing, we just want to know, where can people find you, your social medias, your websites? How can people connect with you?
Okay, so I'm active on Twitter and on Instagram, Phoebe Bakes. And okay, on Twitter it's Phoebe Bakes. On Instagram is Ibi Fiberesima, IBI underscore FIBERESIMA. And also I have a blog on Hashnode where I share tips on open source and community building. Yes. So I'm Phoebe on Hashnode. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, I think I'll share the link when we're done with the call. Then, yeah.
Thank you. I'll definitely share when we're releasing the episode so people can find you, connect, share ideas, brainstorm together. Once again, Phoebe, thank you for being on the podcast with us today. It was really nice having you. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Sarah. You same as well. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Make sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. Also, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Africa's Blank Canvas Podcast, so you're always up to date with the latest news. Don't forget to share. That's the only way we grow.